Aw, cute Twilight. Ah! Scary Twilight! Run!
Hello everyone, I'm Keen47, aka Wolfkeen, and welcome to another edition of my Little Pony vlogs for Season 2. Today, I'm talking about Lesson 0, written by Megan McCarthy. This episode, holy Christ, this episode is so amazingly good. The reason why I say that is because this episode really pushed what could be in a kid's show in more ways than one. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this episode that you shouldn't have in a little girl's show. And I think this is the point where, like, it changed from, like, being a show for little girls to a show that anybody can watch. And that's saying, and that's being brutally honest. Let's get into it. The episode starts with basically Spike and Twilight going through a checklist, which apparently this checklist is just a checklist to help them set up a checklist. Checklistception, huh? So basically, afterwards, they begin doing different things on the checklist, like, they begin doing different things on the checklist. From getting more quills, getting more parchment, cupcakes, which, if you make a joke, I will hurt you. And, of course, other stuff like that. Of course, by the time they finally finish their checklist, Spike, of course, hurts his claw, and then he says, it's a good thing we don't have to write anything to Princess Celestia. Then Twilight begins to have, like, her little breakdown at this point, because she's like, we haven't written a letter to Princess Celestia? And then she begins trying to explain to Spike that she's supposed to write a letter to Princess Celestia every week. He's like, not every other week, not every single month, every single day. Like, she begins going, like, a little paranoid in more ways than like that. And so she begins, trying to figure out when she sent the last letter, and she finds out that, she sent the last letter last week today. So basically she feels she needs to send one today, otherwise she's going to be tardy. This is one instance that I do love. A lot of people were afraid that Twilight was going to turn into a Mary Sue in this, in like later seasons. And this was one of the first seasons that showed that she has a problem, like a serious problem. The first season didn't really delve into that. This one really did. I mean, let's face it, let's all say it, Twilight has OCD. I think that's being honest. I think she has OCD. I mean, I think I have OCD because I'm like Twilight. Like, you see how everything is straight right here? If I notice one thing out of line, I'm going to end up fixing it. And that's a problem that I have. So, yeah, this is why I relate with Twilight in more ways than one. Like, if I see something moved out of place, I'm going to put it back in place. If I'm missing something, I'm going to try to make sure I take care of that something. And if there's something I need to take care of that's very important, I'm going to get very obsessive over it until I take care of it. So, yeah, this is kind of like my videos. Like, whenever, like, I'm on a deadline with videos and stuff like that, I get way too obsessive over it, and I just, like, hammer in and try to do as much as I can, which is the dumbest decision of my life. And, of course, this leads to Twilight making the dumbest decision of her life. So, of course, now she's trying to find anyone to help her learn a friendship lesson. So, first she talks to Spike, who basically has nothing for her, and Spike pretty much resembles exactly what I said. This is not going to end well. So, basically, she goes to Rarity, who basically is looking for a ribbon. But, of course, before we get that, we get, like, the most awesome scene ever from Rarity. I mean, take a look.
Of all the worst things that could happen, this is the worst thing!
I love that scene. I don't know why, but that's me in a nutshell in most cases. When, when something breaks down on me or the video stops recording, I'm just like, that, what Rarity did. Like, the worst possible thing! So, of course, Twilight says, starts acting weird, like, acting like she's going to help Rarity when Rarity finds the ribbon on her own. Then, Twilight decides to move on looking for some of her other friends, who she then runs into, Applejack and Rainbow Dash. For some reason, Rainbow Dash is attacking one of Applejack's barns. Like, I mean literally attacking it. You see her doing, like, a flying karate kick into the building, running into it, and you see Applejack in a ditch with, like, a helmet on, ducking for cover. So Twilight assumes at this point that that Rainbow Dash is angry with Applejack, and then stops her and then tries to talk with her. Of course, then we get we find out the truth when Twilight tries to do a therapy session with Rainbow Dash. We find out that Applejack wants to build a new barn, so she needs Rainbow Dash to destroy this one. And then, of course, we get the freaking rainbow nuclear bomb, which, here you go. There's going to be a lot of scenes I'm going to be showing in Season 2, isn't there? Whatever. As long as I don't get content ID claimed. Well, anyways, after that, we start seeing that Twilight is looking a little disheveled at this point. So now she moves on to trying to help Fluttershy, and then Fluttershy is beating a bear. I know what the context of that scene is, but let's face it, guys. When we first saw that scene, and we saw Fluttershy not only kick the bear, put him in a leg lock, and then basically snap his neck, we were all like this, like, the same face Twilight had, we were all like this, like, no one knew how to react to that, and even Twilight didn't know how to react to that. And then, of course, it's just shown that Twilight was just helping, not Twilight, Fluttershy was just helping the bear with, like a, you know, like a tension in his shoulder. How does snapping the neck relieve that? Kid show, not gonna question it. So now we have Twilight, who's basically sulking badly because she still hasn't learned a friendship lesson, and she ends up getting into a conversation with herself. Does that remind anyone of Gollum? Like, does that remind anyone of Gollum from, you know, Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, and Return of the King? As well as The Hobbit, where, like, he speaks to himself in more ways than one. That also reminds me of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the movies, not the games. Where, like, you know, he sees his reflection in, like, a mirror or maybe in the water, and he talks to himself. Hell, even Jimmy Neutron did this in their cartoon. In, like, the one episode where Jimmy Neutron was basically like the Hulk in most cases. Yes, I watched Jimmy Neutron. Shut up. So, of course, Spike finally brings Twilight back to reality after she has, like, this weird nightmare of, you know, Philly's laughing at her, and tells Twilight to go to the picnic. When Twilight does go to the picnic, holy crap does she looks creepy. Her hair is messed up like hell. She looks crazy as hell. Like, you know, her eyes are, like, puffy, I think is the best word. And that weird smile. That weird freaking smile. It was like, you know, one of these smiles. Like one of those smiles. That's what she had. So, of course, the main six try to figure out what's wrong with her, and she explains, saying that she has to write a letter. She has to write a friendship letter for Princess Celestia, and she hasn't learned anything yet. And then the main six just write her off at that point. So, of course, Twilight tries to bring out the severity of the situation, and, of course, none of them really care. To be honest, I understand that, because that's not really their concern in some cases. Don't get me wrong. I know what you're about to say. Oh, they're her friends. They're her friends. They should be helping her. They should... Not really. These are lessons that she's supposed to learn, not the main six. But I'm going to get into that as the episode progresses. So Twilight gets upset and leaves the remaining five to try to figure out something. Then she has the worst idea possible. So, of course, she goes to the CMCs where you've already seen the beginning of the video and my reaction to the scary Twilight face. Then she goes to the CMC. I mean, she teleports into their ball and pops it and has, like, the only face saying, "Hi, girls." I swear to God, if I was to see someone saying hello, if I was a kid and I saw a person with that kind of a scary face saying, "Hey, children," I would be screaming, "Adult!" Like, I'd be screaming adult right now. And, of course, Twilight is trying to find a way to get a friendship lesson out of the CMC using her doll known as Smarty Pants. Of course, most of the effort fails at one point until the CMC are fighting each other, trying not to get to play with the doll. So, Twilight casts a spell on the doll called the Want and Need spell, which, of course, makes them want and need the damn thing. So, of course, Twilight tries to talk to them now about a lesson they learned or a lesson she learned, and, of course, it fails miserably. Trying to get the doll back, she fails, and then she calls Big Macintosh to help her out. Big Mac does end up getting the doll away from the CMC, but then he falls under the influence himself, and then more ponies start coming around and falling under the influence of the doll itself. What the hell? Were just a bunch of random ponies walking around in the middle of the area, and they all saw the doll at the same time? And then, of course, like, the remaining five see, like, this insane battle going on between all these ponies for this one doll. And Twilight pretty much explains exactly what she did to her friends, and she says, the sun is almost down, and then the sun finally does set, and then we hear, the craziest voice ever, we hear Celestia coming out Twilight Sparkle! Seriously, that's when the sun went down, and I heard that scream, I was like, oh, Christ. And then when I saw Celestia with, that angry look and that glowing aura, I was like, oh, Christ. Because I knew something was going to go down. What Celestia did at one point was use her magic to basically break the spell every pony had on them. And they all drop the doll and pretty much go home, except Big Mac, who grabs the doll and takes it with him. A lot of people speculated, did the spell really wear off on him, or did he legitimately like the doll? This is a speculation that people have made in Hearts and Hooves Day as well, but I'll get to that when I get to my vlog of it. So, of course, Celestia tells Twilight to meet her in the library, and Twilight is pretty much telling her friends that she's probably not coming back. And, of course, her friends are worried about this as well, saying that she's probably not going to come back anyways. So Celestia and Twilight start talking to each other in the library, and Celestia does start telling Twilight, calming her down a little bit, saying that you don't need to write a letter to me every week to know that you're a good student. Of course, the main six end up barging in and trying to explain their piece, saying that it's their fault for not taking Twilight's, feelings into consideration. That is true. Remember what I said. Yes, it's not their concern that, it was none of their concern, Twilight's issue, but it was their concern letting her go this far. It's like, me getting so obsessive over one situation and my friends doing nothing about it, and then my obsession causes a bad situation to occur. My friends are going to feel pretty bad about it because they had an opportunity to stop me, but they didn't. This is what happened with the main six. The Remain Five had an opportunity to stop Twilight, but they didn't. They chose to ignore it, and of course, they feel a little guilty about this. So, of course, they begin telling Princess Celestia to not punish her and, to forgive her because it was their fault that they let her go this far. So Celestia tells them that she won't punish Twilight, but she wants a friendship letter from all of her friends, and when they can write it. Yes! Remember my problem with Season 1 where I felt like Twilight was shoehorned into every episode possible? This is the solution to it. This was the solution to Twilight being shoehorned into every episode. Now, we don't need Twilight in every episode for a friendship letter or anything like that, or a lesson to be learned. That's a great thing. Because they did this approach, now we don't have to worry about having Twilight in every episode. Now we can have separate episodes with different characters, and we do get this in a multitude of episodes, where we get, certain characters on their own and not with many of the members of the main six. Like I said, in more ways than one. And, of course, the lesson is to try to take your friends' feelings into consideration at all times, and pretty much that is Lesson 0. This episode was amazing, because in more ways than one, it fixed a lot of problems Season 1 had. The first problem that Season 1 had was the fact that Twilight was shoehorned into every episode. Fixed. The second thing was that the first season was more girly and more pointed towards a girl audience. This episode has proven that they're not trying to do that, and they're trying to point it towards a general audience. Fixed. The third thing that I noticed in this episode is that the animation and the humor in this episode is vastly improved over the first season. Fixed. And then finally, the idea of the friendship letter, any member of the main six can do it, not just Twilight. This fixes a problem that, many members of the main six were learning lessons in Season 1, but Twilight was the one writing the letter. Fixed. They fixed a lot of problems in Season 1 with this one episode. And it's this one episode that gave me a lot of hope for the rest of Season 2. So honestly, this season is starting off amazingly. Because think about it. You have the two-parter Return of Harmony, which has one of the best villains of all time, Discord, and you have this episode, which has fixed a lot of Season 1 problems. The humor in this episode is amazing. God, the freaking animation is good as well. I mean, the rainbow nuke. Come on, the rainbow nuke, guys. And not to mention, Twilight going into a mental breakdown, it was so funny to look at. Especially how disheveled she was. It reminds me of Rarity in Suited for Success, how her hair was becoming more disheveled and so was her general appearance. Here, we got to see Twilight go through that as well, and it was kind of interesting seeing this. All I gotta say is, Lesson Zero is definitely one of my favorite episodes of Season 2, and I cannot wait to talk about the next few episodes. Because the next episode is going to be about Luna, and I know a lot of people want to hear my opinion about that one. So, until next time, guys, I'm Keen947, aka Wolfkeen, and this has been another edition of my My Little Pony Vlogs for Season 2. Until next time, guys, take care.